to the cloud.
Good afternoon. This is Jim Eskin. On behalf of Eskin Fundraising Training, it is my pleasure to welcome you to our nonprofit empowerment webinar series. Charlotte Ann, I don't know if this is a lucky number. I think it is. It's May 50. It is episode 55 in our webinar series. I'm going to give a fuller introduction to the lady that's really doing everything, but that's nothing new, Charlotte Ann Lucas, who is the founding director of NOWCastSA, which is like a local C-SPAN on the internet. We're going to hear a little more about that. Charlotte Ann, how are you doing today?
You know, it's not bad. We're only up to Plan D, but there's a lot of day left. We're doing a candidate forum tonight at 7:30. So there's
folks, I get tired just trying to keep up with Charlotte Ann's schedule, but we'd like to welcome you. You know, this has been a year now that we've learned something we didn't hear about. Now it is as common as tissue paper. I don't know why I picked that work, because we didn't have it a year ago. Working remotely and virtual communication. Now, this has particularly been a challenge for us in the nonprofit sector, because we have a saying, we like to get the donors within our hug. But because of social distancing and what happened over the last year, we had to discover how to use technology to reinforce the human touch. And by the way, I went for 25 years to different conferences, and we were told to raise money, you had to do it face-to-face, particularly the larger gifts of $25,000 or more. And we have all sorts of evidence from this year that virtual fundraising works. But we have an expert on virtual communication, and the theme is the do's and the don'ts. And I'm afraid Charlotte Ann can just say, point at everything that Jim's doing, and that's a don't. But she is after a ridiculously uber, and that's means the highest excellence in career in print and digital journalism. In 2009, she was selected to be the founding executive director of NOWCastSA. She's won so many awards. I mean, I don't even know where to start. So I'm going to start with some questions, okay? And then I'm going to go a little bit back to my general background. What would you say, Charlotte Ann, is the biggest difference in communicating virtually versus communicating in person?
Well, you know, we really see a lot from body language in addition to what we can see on video, right? So you obviously, you know, you don't know if I have my yoga pants on or my dress go to the office pants, but you also don't know what I'm doing with my hands, right? If I'm fidgeting, if I'm, and also we can't reach out and, you know, give people a hug, and, you know, and these elbow bumps are not very good.
Yeah.
Very good substitutes.
Yeah. Let's go on to another big issue, and it is computer screen fatigue. And we didn't have it probably a year ago, and now it's 99% taking America. And, you know, this has been a year of historic vaccines. Do you have any vaccine or suggestions that how to help our nonprofit friends deal with the outbreak of computer screen fatigue?
I think that part of what we all have a responsibility to do for each other, being compassionate with each other, is making sure that our meetings, our computer screen meetings, are really, really valuable, and also that we kind of respect each other's time and respect each other's all sorts of things, because I can't actually physically go to a conference now. I'm going to conferences online, but that might mean that I'm not able to put barriers up here, and I have to respect the fact that people might be multitasking while they're going to that conference, and they might be listening with one ear but still having to make sure that kids or dogs or cats or whatever are taken care of in the background. So it's, I guess, the biggest thing we all have to do to each other is be compassionate and also recognize how valuable your attention span is, your infotension, as one of my friends calls it.
Yeah, I like it. Charlotte and Ann and I have established 3 learning objectives for today: what to do, what not to do, and she might say just watch Jim. And then how to do it better. I want to invite our audience for a moment. Is there any other learning objective related to virtual communication? Who else is? By any chance is Kathy Meyer out there, or how about Casey?
I don't see them online, and I'm not seeing anybody. But I encourage people to type something in the chat.
Hey, Joel, can you come online with us?
How
about Nancy?
Nancy, can you? Nancy was not wanting to do her video, but we can do. And she said there was noisy things in the background. So
what's that? Okay.
She said there was much noise in the background.
Well, okay. I'm going to throw out a wild card question before I go to about 5 minutes of some general background. Then we're going to get into a very detailed Q&A with Charlotte Ann. Charlotte Ann, stick the USB in your brain. Any chance you could remember your first video chat?
I think it was actually 2008 when I got a Nokia N95, and Nokia N95 is actually a little computer, but it was like a really early, really badass cell phone, and it was what Reuters correspondents were using as their backpack to do backpack journalism, and you could see video in there, you could stream video with it. That was before iPhones, if you can imagine such a time.
Yeah. Well, video conferencing, I'm going to date myself, has been around. I remember working for Trade Association in Washington, D.C. in 1977. And I don't know why Bell Labs, I mean, we could hardly pay our bills, but they invited me as a group of 5 folks from Washington to go down to one of their laboratories in New Jersey. And we tested out their video conferencing. That was 1977. I mean, I think we've taken it up to scale. Charlotte Ann has been part of our learning community in every way possible. She and her husband Will have joined several of our workshops. She has presented live on several occasions. She's presented virtually on several occasions. So I'm going to skip through the background. I'm going to say a point about myself. This is a big day for San Antonio. I spent 25 years in the higher education advancement field, and my last gig was the executive director of the Alamo Colleges Foundation. 2, not 1, count them, 2 huge stories about San Antonio College today. Number 1, they were voted the best by the Aspen Institute, the best community college in the United States. President Obama said that's the Oscar for community colleges, and they're going to receive $600,000. The total prize pool was $1 million, so the 4 runner-up get $100,000 each. And Charlotte Ann, but you don't know. You know what the number 2 story is?
No, I missed that.
Well, I'm going to give you a scoop. The student body voted and completed the tallying at San Antonio College. They have renamed their mascot from the Ranger to the Armadillo. So, but congratulations to Dr. Vela winning the Aspen, and to everybody, my former colleagues, congratulations on the well-earned recognition. No community college in Texas has ever won this award. We're going to go to Charlotte Ann in a second. I wanted to say there's been a little hiccup. Charlotte Ann used to be a business editor, so she follows that stuff. The stock market's been hiccuping a little in the last week, but it's been on a historic run. If there's anything we know about philanthropy, it follows the stock market. The stock market has gone way, way up at historic levels. And guess what? Giving has gone up. And we've seen, we have results in 2020 was up 11% over 2019. Something called a donor advised funds. When you and I probably started out our careers, they didn't exist. I think they started in 1991. Fidelity alone granted, I think it's $9.1 billion as directed by their grant holders to the nonprofit community. Big change. I called her Wonder Woman. Mackenzie Scott has last year donated $6 billion. 20 million went to, again, one of my former employers, Paul Alto College, won $20 million. The United Way, I received, believe, $20 million. And was it, somebody else received 10 million out of that. I mean, the money given by Mackenzie Scott was given unrestricted lump sum. Incredible, something we've never seen in philanthropy before. And as Charlotte Ann knows that it's very, very competitive to be a nonprofit. We have 1.5 million in the country. We have 100,000 in the state of Texas. We got 6,000 just in the San Antonio area. Okay, so and most of them are small. And we realize, like, NOWCastSA and a lot of other members of the learning community, half of the 1.5 million nonprofits have revenues annually under $500,000. So Charlotte Ann, we have a little tradition at this point before I'm going to go to our detailed questions. Could everybody please type in the chat space, nonprofit strong, because that's what we are. And Charlotte Ann, what are we?
Nonprofit strong.
You got that one right, and that's your last easy question, okay? So everyone type that in, and Charlotte Ann, are you ready now? Actually, I'll tell you what, a curveball. For those of us who don't know about NOWCastSA, can you take a couple of minutes to share this vision that you all have brought alive in San Antonio since 2009?
So NOWCastSA was born from a grant from the John S. and James L. Knight Foundation that was matched by the San Antonio Area Foundation on the premise that information is a core community need. And as the years have gone by since 2009, obviously we know that trustworthy information is an essential community need. And so that's the foundation of why we came to exist. And also we came to exist because there was a strong sense that people in the community, many of the local stories weren't being told and needed to be told, and their stories needed to be amplified. And so that's a big part of what we're doing. We're not doing traditional journalism in any sense of the word. I was, started in this business on a manual typewriter because I didn't have seniority for the electric. That was a long time ago. And in what we do at NOWCast, it's very different than that kind of thing. One of the most important things we did at the outset of the pandemic, when schools closed, we realized that children in poverty, for those kids, schools were their primary source of meals for every day. And we started putting together a map so that children could find, buses were bringing food out into the community for kids and dropping it off in the community, and there were drop-off places for food. And we put a map together, and because there are so many school districts and so many drop-off locations, that map had 320 locations and across the San Antonio area on 19 different school districts. So that kind of information is something that I couldn't have even dreamed of when I was at a newspaper in the 70s and 80s and 90s. But that kind of information is essential for this community. Right now, we're tied up in candidate forums because, as you all I know, are registered voters, and at least in San Antonio, there were 10 city council seats and the mayor up for election, and now there are 5 runoff races.
Wow.
And so we're doing those, and another one tonight, one 3 days ago, so that people can hear where the candidates stand on the issues, and they can get their butts out and vote. And our other most popular item is a polling places voting map, a map of polling places that's been used by 185,000 people over the years. So.
Well, Charlotte, first of all, thank you to you and your team and your board for this inspiring vision and just the incredible amount of hard work that's gone into making it a reality. You all have improved our civic infrastructure so much. Thank you for your leadership.
And I couldn't do it without the interns, and quite frankly, the interns who right now who are helping me today and this semester include some extraordinarily wonderful interns from the Alamo colleges, one from Palo Alto College and one from San Antonio College this semester.
Charlene, you developed a wonderful tip sheet that even someone like me could understand, and we're going to post that on social media after this webinar. And you go through 7 key areas in being a virtual successful event. And I was wondering, rather than pointing at me and saying, just don't do what Jim's doing, but I'm going to show these 5 areas, and you're going to talk about the do's and the don'ts. So we're going to start with camera setup. Could you help us? And I love the way that you make it easy to understand. Tell us what to do and what not to do.
Okay, so I'm sort of not cheating, but I will tell you that the camera in your cell phone is better than the camera in your computer. So
could you say that again? Could you say that again?
The camera in your cell phone is better than the camera in your computer. And I could give you the technical specs for it, but let's just say, if you can remember one of them, it's 1080i. So your cell phone camera is 1080i. Your computer camera is probably 720p. And yeah, the bigger number means it's got more whistles and bells. So I kind of, I put up with that for a while, and then I said, this is just not good enough. And so I went out and bought an inexpensive webcam. The one that I'm using right this minute is not as inexpensive as the first one I got. The first one I bought at Costco on sale for $65. It's
wow.
B&H has it for about 80 or 90 now. And so you can get that camera. And the one I have actually, I got because somebody wanted us to live stream in the middle of a parking lot with no internet and no power, and I realized I couldn't take a bunch of cameras in my gear, so I bought a new webcam, and this one actually gives me the capacity to zoom and pan and tilt and do the, like, I can do close up and further away, and I can do white balance and stuff like that. And this one was $300. It's a pretty, it's more advanced. Let me get that back again so you don't see the other secret thing behind the curtain there. But the other thing that's really important with whichever camera you do is that you try to position the camera in such a way that, whether it's your computer camera or whatever, that you're looking at the camera and you're doing your best to make eye contact, right? So you're putting the camera someplace.
I'm good at butting in, but I think, how do you fight that with the temptation of looking at the eyes of the other person you're talking to?
Well, I mean, you can move your screen up, and I mean, you can put your screen on books or something so that you're looking up, right? You can put a bunch of books underneath it. I mean, you theoretically shouldn't be typing on your keyboard. So even if you're using a laptop, pack a bunch of books underneath it so that the laptop raises up to your eye level so that you're doing it easily, right? Did you want me to get into the lighting on this, or is that a different slide?
Yeah,
I can't
no,
remember.
actually, you're ahead.
Okay.
Yeah. How about that?
Okay.
Hey, let's talk about
Okay.
the do's and don'ts of lighting.
So one of the really important things to not do, I'm sorry, I've just like now I've messed up my camera. There you go. So one of the important things to do is to not have a window behind you. Okay. A window behind you will give you a halo, whether you deserve it or not. And a window behind you is a distraction, and it also really confuses the hell out of a not so good camera, which is
Hey,
your computer camera.
pardon me. I'm in the spirit of my late mother says, always repeat things that are a big no-nos. Repeat that again. What?
Don't put the window behind you. The other thing is, you see this color on my face, that's coming from a window that's right there. And so the best possible lighting you can get is natural lighting from a window. So if you can possibly face yourself toward the window, that's the best possible lighting, assuming it's daylight. That's the best possible lighting. Then if you don't have that, um, try to, with windows behind you, try to cover it up. If you don't do the window in front of you, try to get some other kind of lighting that is lighting that doesn't come down from above, right? So you can see I have the overhead on, and I probably should have not put the overhead on, and it's putting a nice little glow on my hair. But the other thing that the overhead light can do, if it's in the wrong spot, is really intensify this under my eyes, and I really don't want to intensify that, right? I mean, it's enough that it's there. I also have, this is my newest little toy, and this little it's a desk lamp. It was not that much, and you can make it go into all different modes and it does all different colors. So it gives you a better color or a worse color or whatever that really is helpful. And it's just a little desk lamp.
I want to
If
ask
you
you a
and
question. I want to ask a
Okay.
question. If
Oh,
that's to be asked,
yes.
if you're lucky enough to have good outside internet, it would be an advantage if you had good weather to take advantage of natural lighting.
Oh, well, yeah, sure. Sure. I mean, yes, as long as it's not too noisy, if the noises are soothing noises, nice birds and stuff like that, no ambulances in the background and stuff
Yeah.
like that. I mean, you could go outside, but there's noise outside, and it's just harder to control the noise outside than it is inside. So that's the whole nother do's and don'ts on the noise. So
We'll get to that in a moment, but let's talk about something that you've been trying to teach me, and I'm going to give you another lame excuse. But talk about background.
Okay, so this is the total cheat thing, right? Okay, ready? Here's what's behind the curtain. Okay, so this is, I have what is called a web around, and it slides onto my chair, and it gives me a nice background, and it's super easy to just set up and just kind of leave set up on the back of my chair. And the cool thing for me, I mean, this is compassion too, right? So I've had this office, big office since 1999 when I went to the web. My husband has half of the office. I have half of the office. By putting this thing up, it doesn't restrict my husband, because he has been walking back and forth behind me, and y'all haven't noticed him. It hasn't been a distraction to you guys, and it gives me a little bit of privacy while I'm on the call, but it also allows him to like go about his business and not have to be like relegated to another floor of the house, or to the whatever room. So that's really important.
In full disclosure, we purchased one of those. I had to make a decision. I'm going through that phase of life called getting older and have some serious back issues. So we had to put in a back massager into here. And for some reason had a Trues back massager, and we're putting the web wraparound to black out one of our windows. It's the highest sound.
Oh, I see it. I see it. That's wonderful. Well, the other thing is super important, and you don't realize it at first. And I'm not going to name names, but try to not, if you do have a ceiling fan on, because like in Texas, who doesn't, try to turn it off during any times when you're on screen, so that you do not look like a propeller head. So there's that.
Hey,
But if it's
Okay.
It's off. It's off. See, you do not look like a propeller head. You like
Well,
did it.
I look
Totally
like,
did it.
I don't know. Hey, you hinted at this, but again, people forget, and I could learn this. I remember the first lesson you gave me. Video is only as good as the sound. Let's talk about
Well,
sound.
actually, I say it in a sort of a more vernacular way. If the audio sucks, the video sucks. So, um, so if you have heard people's audio lag on Zoom calls, that is actually because their internet connection, they're probably on Wi-Fi. And I am on right now. Let's see if I can pull it over here. I'm on a hardwired Ethernet connection, and I try every time I'm pushing a thing. As an attendee, it's not a big deal, but as a presenter, it's always a really big deal. If you can possibly plug your computer, get the adapter, plug your computer straight into your modem or your router, but plug it straight in so that you've got a hard line connection. And the handout gives you more specifics on the technical details on this. It's all available from Best Buy. It's super, you can get it curbside, but it's really worthwhile, and your audio will not lag. And that's super important, because if your audio lags and you start annoying people, that's just like they're going to tune you out. I mean, nobody's got time to just work that hard to try to listen to what you're doing.
I'm going to go back to something I
oh.
remember on this. We're going to repeat the importance of being hardwired. I think I did my second show last year on April 8th of Lionel Souza, and I kept on getting these signals across my computer screen, unstable connection. And Charlotte Ann called me after 2 glasses of wine and taught me about the world of getting hardwired and Ethernet. And we called AT&T, and guess what? We've been hardwired ever since. Can you talk about, again, I think a lot of people, I'm going to use the word, are seduced that their Wi-Fi is the way to go.
So I don't know how many of you have ever checked the speed of your internet connection, right? But you can go to a place called speedtest.net, and I go there all the time. I go there every time we do a live stream anywhere. And my husband and I were at the University of Maryland, and the folks at the University of Maryland, he was live streaming a conference, and they said, oh, we have the fastest internet in the world. And probably because they have those 3-letter agencies nearby. I don't know why, but they did have the fastest internet in the world. It was 650 megabits per second upload speed, and upload is what we stream on. And so they were like, you don't need to be hardwired. We've got the fastest internet in the entire history of the world. And pretty much it is. And so we hooked it up, and damned if it still didn't wave and wave and wave. And so there was some cycling, there was some buffering in our live stream. And the buffering is not because it's like the fastest in the world. It's because Wi-Fi it's a wave. It's not a hardline connection. And so when I was giving people some coaching on this for a conference we were doing a while back, and they said, oh, my Wi-Fi is fast. And I said, is it faster than 650 megabits up? Because I've done that and it still messes up. So, I mean, it's just really not a question of how fast your Wi-Fi is. It's a question of whether it's a hardline connection.
Hey, by the way, I think I'm going to put in a bonus question at this point, because it's out of your real crazy life, if I can say that. Can you always have to have not one, but multiple backup plans? Can you, without too much convulsions, describe what today was like?
So this morning, while I was like minding my own business and trying to get ready for 3 different things at once, a CPS crew was working on a pole on the yard behind us, and cut off our electricity, which was kind of rude. And they said it was an emergency, they had to do it, and sorry, and it would be back on, and it was back on in 20 minutes. But then the internet didn't come back on. And we have AT&T super fast internet, because that's like what we do. And so it's like 1 gig up and 1 gig down, and it usually measures that. And so here we were losing our really fast internet, and I knew I was doing this and I really needed it. And so he got on the horn with AT&T, and by the time that they decided that it was it was their fault, they needed to send someone out, and he's coming out in the morning. So plan A is gone. Plan B was my Verizon hotspot. And so I pulled the, this is up, sorry, it's upside down.
Hey, pardon me 1 second. For those who aren't, explain what a hotspot is. Not everyone.
So you can turn your phone into a hotspot, but this is also just a hotspot that just provides internet. And sorry, there's the camera is trying to get this in focus. I got it in focus. It provides an Wi-Fi signal, right? So this isn't my preference, but we have this as a Nowcast owns this. And so I turned this on, and then I went to what I said before, speedtest.net. And at speedtest.net, it said the fastest speed I was getting out of this thing was 1.2 megabits per second upload, which is just horrible. And it's not good enough. It's not good enough. You got to have at least 5 up to be able to push something. And since I'm like driving, he persuaded me to drive this Zoom call today. I knew I needed faster speed. And so plan C or D was another device that I purchased several years ago to do a live stream in a church that I said, yes, we do it. Then I found out the church had no internet. So we have a device called a Cradle Point, and it creates a hardline internet connection from this with its little mouse ears that actually pull it in from cell, but then it creates a hardline connection. It's an $800 piece of equipment that I pay $50 a month for to maintain it. And I started putting that in places around the house until I finally got pointed it more or less at Fort Sam Houston, which is right next door, and they have some really strong cell signals there. And but that last direction, I had it in 4 different directions before we pointed it in that direction, and that direction was at 3:29 p.m. So I came kind of dashing into the Zoom thing, saying, "Oh yes,
Wow.
yes, I'll be here."
Thank you.
But that's plan C.
By the way, you used the word earlier, compassion. And so I better show some compassion. Please tell me that you and Will have had sufficient number of cups of coffee today.
Actually, yeah, I'm due for my afternoon recharge, but adrenaline was doing it for me while I was like not getting good enough speed. And yeah, it was no fun. But if you have the capacity to get a hotspot, or even if you don't, figure out how to turn your phone into a hotspot so that if things go down, you can at least bump over to that. So right now, I mean, I'm on this hard line, but I've got this guy sitting right next door. You know, it's not as good, but it's there if something happens to the hard line, or if God forbid, because we've got it outside if it starts raining or something.
I think you remember, like I did, I think like 15 years ago, they used to call that tethering, and they never promoted it. I got it. I mean, I had to force someone at gunpoint to, I had that device, and I had a hotspot before hotspots were cool. Hey,
absolutely.
Talking about cool, I have plenty more questions for you, but has anyone either typed a question in the chat space, or better yet, we'd love to have you come on screen and camera and share what you would like to know about virtual communication. Either way.
I don't see any questions yet, but I would love to pull people into some questions. Let me put a quick thing in that is on sound that I forgot. Oh, Don. Okay. Let me do a quick thing on sound before you go, Don. You may notice that these wires are hanging from my ears, and that's because we have learned the hard way that when you go on screen, you really should be on something that's wired. The AirPods are wonderful and they're keen, and they like go out or decide to pair with the wrong device at just the wrong time. And so anything with wires is just like going to be a bazillion% better. And hey, now that I've said that, John, go ahead and talk to us.
Before Dawn comes in, can I say too, as a cheapskate, the wired version is always cheaper. And is this Don Gleason, by the way?
Yes,
it is.
Come on. Hey, Don, how are you doing?
Doing great. Good to another great subject. Hey, Charlotte, what I was looking at is what I love to do when I do Zoom calls is in training is to have interaction. And sometimes when you're doing slides, it can be hard because you're either seeing the slide and no people, um, or you're seeing people and no slides. And I was wondering how you work that to be able to do a presentation where you can keep that crowd interaction going, and to see how they're reacting as well as engage them and pull them in the conversation.
You know, I don't, in an awful lot of what I do, I don't use it as much slides because, and I do use a lot of people on screen. I mean, that's just that's part of my thing to keep it as engaging as possible.
And I break the rule. There's a don't of Jim. I'm a slideaholic.
no. Well,
I'm a slideaholic.
But you don't do the bad slides. The bad slides are, you know, bullets, slides with bullets, just like
Hey,
you
by
just
the
like
way,
you lost me.
We have a moment, Donna. Are you still there? I always like when you've been a very steady part of our learning community, whether it was live workshop or webinar. Can you please tell everyone about the Military Transition Roundtable?
Sure. Yeah, what we do is we found that too often, even there's government transition assistance programs and even private transition assistance programs, that militaries still end up transitioning alone. So what we do is we build the mastermind concept out of the book Think and Grow Rich, and it's bringing 8 to 10 people together in a cohort, and we build a community around them for 6 months, and they get to know these people, and then you can really have good conversations about the obstacles that they're facing and how to help them get over it. And we also hold them accountable to an action plan. So there's a number of things we do outside of it, like LinkedIn coaching and what do I want to do next? That's the number one thing militaries struggle with is, what do I want to do next? And so we really help them. In fact, I've been on 3 calls this afternoon helping people think into that. And so we're really helping them through the process. And it's instead of them coming to a class and learning about resumes and interviewing or whatever, we actually sit down and we coach them and we talk to them and we bring the power of the group together. So thanks for the opportunity, Jim.
And thank you for what you're doing for the community. Charlotte Ann, I'm going to go to some general, I call it presentation strategy. And this next one is, God, I am a don't do as Jim does. How do you suggest that nonprofit leaders dress for a virtual meeting? And I'll start with this. Over my 25 years of being a higher education fundraiser, when I was asking for a gift, it was a blue suit, it was a light blue shirt, and it was a dark blue tie. Andrea knew exactly what I was up to do that day. I got to tell you, it's been a long time since I put on the blue suit. I think we are dressing a little too informally, but I'll refer to you.
You know, it's funny. As a journalist, I remember when the book Dress for Success came out.
Yeah.
And I devoured it immediately and got to the part in the book where it said, and if you're a journalist, then you ignore everything in this book. You have to dress for the situation you're in. So, and I've gone by that, right? I mean, I used to cover federal courts in Dallas, and back in the day when Barefoot Sanders would tell guys without a tie to get to his chambers and get themselves a tie before they came back in, or a jacket. You couldn't go in if you're a man without a jacket. So, I mean, I had some kind of severe potty training early on about, you know, this, you dress for the situation that you're in. And I have to say, during the pandemic, I've had interns working with me from all over the place, and I've felt a serious obligation to those interns to also kind of say to them, I respect you and I respect this office space so much that I'm going to dress always in what I would wear to an office. So I do that with the kids, and to try to respect them, right? And I think that also goes with a lot of what we do. If I'm an attendee, I'm like much more relaxed about, you know, I probably have yoga pants on, but but if I'm a presenter, or if I'm doing some sort of a more formal thing, I really dress as if I was on stage in front of people in real life thing.
Hey, by the way, when you mentioned Dress for Success, which I believe was John T. Malloy. I mean,
oh yes.
And thank you, Mr. Malloy. I got 10 blue suits. And let's talk about some other issues. First of all, equate in-person time with virtual time?
Yeah, so our attention span, I mean, and it goes with all online things, right? So I could do a documentary as a journalist, and that used to be fine, but now really people want to see a 3-minute video, right? I mean, and so that's our attention span, the attention span issue that we've got to deal with. Excuse me, I do need to tell you that even though you can't see what's going on behind me, we do have a gig at 7 that I have to leave for right after this. And so my dear sweet husband is packing pelicans full of video gear. And that's the sounds in the background that you hear. Sorry about that.
That's
So
the honey-do list, right?
he's my hero.
Okay.
For helping take care of all of this, and particularly when we're now, because it's raining, we're going to be inside of a dark bar, and so we also have to bring lights and internet and cameras. So yeah, I mean, our attention spans are much more reduced for screen time, right? And so the meetings, I mean, so I've seen a lot of different critiques of meetings online, and I try to keep my meetings with my staff and stuff to be 20 to 30 minutes, so.
Yeah. It's kind of like dog ears. I think, in-person and virtual minutes are very different. In the nonprofit arena where we ask people for money, we're saying your virtual solicitation should be 2/3 the length of the in-person, because it is so demanding. It's so intense. Here's another one. I ask you, wise one who knows everything. Do you think there's a better time of day to conduct a virtual meeting?
I was trying to pay attention to my own sort of capabilities, biorhythms, right? Yeah. And I really felt like, after paying a little attention to what I was doing, that I have a much greater capacity to focus in the morning. And I have a less capacity to focus in the afternoon. And so I will be honest, I schedule meetings for the afternoon. And I schedule my time when I really need to focus on projects and stuff like that in the morning. And so I think afternoons also respect the fact that in the mornings we're doing a combination of things. We're focusing on things we need to focus on, and we're also catching up with our email box. And by the afternoon, I think most of us are in a better position to schedule things.
Okay, this is another tough question. Let's just say I'm with NOWCastSA, and we are making a virtual fundraising call on Mackenzie Scott. We're going to ask her for $20 million. How many people do you think should be involved from the nonprofit, put it that way, in the virtual call?
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to mute you. I think I unmuted you. I hope I did. Okay, I think it's just talking about me. I would like at least 2 people from the nonprofit. I'm not sure that I would want more from the nonprofit, because it would kind of seem like fielding a baseball team. But I know frequently when, and I'm just speaking from my personal experience, right? When I would go out as a journalist on a story, if I had a photographer with me, sometimes the photographer's ears worked better than mine did. And sometimes the photographer heard things that I didn't hear. And sometimes the photographer's question was better than mine. So just from my personal life.
I recommend for in-person meetings, and I wouldn't really change it unless you had maybe like the President of the United States or the Pope or someone who is pretty important. But 2x, I don't think there should be no more than 2 people on the solicitation side than the person that's being asked. So in other words, if it's a husband and wife couple, you might feel comfortable bringing more than 2 people. But if it's just one individual, I would never have more than 2 people on the other side because it looks like you're overwhelming. I always liked, I have a board leader and a staff leader, and I better be careful. The staff leaders make sure the board leader does everything great, and vice versa. But also, I like the staff person. That allows one person to take notes.
That's what I was just going to say, right? Because it's sometimes, I mean, I'm congenitally, I just take notes because I do, because I'm a journalist and I always take notes. But I don't think that we're all hardwired that way, and it's really helpful to have somebody else who was taking notes the whole time to go, now what did we agree to do?
So we have how many? Now let's talk about the mechanics. Say you have scheduled a virtual meeting with Mackenzie Scott, okay? How long, say for 10 a.m. her time? I think she's out in Washington State. How long should you, the nonprofit, be on the line before the scheduled meeting?
Before the scheduled meeting?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I would do it the same way that I try to do my in-person meetings, which is get there at least 10 minutes early. But you know, that's how I try to do in-person meetings. I'm not sure, you know, I would certainly, you know, be as scrupulous about getting there ahead of time and not making it last minute, so that you could make sure that, you know, your hair is in place and stuff.
This is really, by the way, this is a cue. Do we have anybody else who has a question?
Yes,
Okay.
Nancy has a question, and she will unmute and show herself as soon as we.
Welcome, Nancy, to the learning community.
Can you do that, Nancy? You can do it yourself, right? Yay.
Well, I'm trying to unmute.
You did it. You did it.
Myself. Okay.
You did it.
Nancy,
All right.
Charlotte, by the way, Charlotte and Ann have a deal. If it's a difficult question, she takes it. If it's an easy as pie question, I take it. Okay.
Okay.
Pull the top of your laptop towards you.
Oh,
there you go.
I have the view. I can't see myself. I just see the way I have my view set up. I see you. Anyway.
Okay. You're good.
And I'm actually on the treadmill right now, but see, you can multitask and still listen. I've been listening on the treadmill, but here's my question. I'm not a nonprofit staff person or a fundraising person. I'm a volunteer.
Oh,
I have.
By the way, we love volunteers. The nonprofit sector couldn't do what it did over the last year. God bless our volunteers. Thank you for being a volunteer.
I've watched a ton of webinars since the pandemic started. In fact, I've signed up for, this is my second one so far, and I got 4 more tonight. I don't know if I'll peter out. I do better at night, but if I can't watch them, I'll do it later. But here's my question. I lead a local Houston nonprofit. It's a chapter of a national organization. When we were having programs in person, we would do 2 to 4 programs a year, just depending on timing and what we wanted to do. However, since the pandemic started, now I'm going to start looking at my camera. Since the pandemic started, we have been having programs once a month because we have been able to collaborate with other chapters of this organization and even the national staff of this organization and have speakers from all over the country. So that's been really advantageous. Now, of course, we want to resume having in-person programs. However, we'd also like to get the benefits of having these virtual programs so that people can join us no matter what they're doing, if they're exercising at home or if they're across the country. We had mentioned that somebody said, well, yeah, they'd like to do it too, but it's hard. They were trying to figure out how people are going to do that, have in-person programs, but also make them available for people to watch virtually. So my question is, have you thought about technologically how people can do that, or how organizations can do that?
I have, and you're right on top of it. I totally have. So before the pandemic, we live streamed everything and gave people access to all sorts of things, whether it was poetry, whether it was city planning meetings, whether it was like candidate forums like this. I mean, that's what we did. We went to every place all over the city and live streamed. But that was a sort of one-way thing, right? So people on the other end could receive. They really couldn't, it wasn't at all interactive like this is, right? So now everybody can do the Zoom thing, but you're all in different places, right? So how do you do the Zoom thing and also then have some people in real life? And I think that's going to be, I think a blend is probably where we're going to be. And I just bought a piece of equipment, and what happens is I'll buy this really expensive piece of equipment, but then pretty soon, very quickly, technology will catch up to us and will make it possible for everybody to be able to do it. So for instance, you can turn your webcam into a camera that then helps you do a Zoom thing from in person. My extremely expensive piece of equipment right now lets me use cameras in real person, and we're going to do that tonight. We're going to do 3 cameras like we usually do for an in-person event, and we'll stream it out to YouTube and to Facebook. But this device will also let me pull somebody in by Skype, so I can have somebody be interactive and on the screen from another place, and it will let me bring in Zoom, and it will let me blend in real life with interactive online, which is a really big deal. And it's actually something people have wanted for a long time, to not just have it be a one way when we stream, but to have it be, and now we're all spoiled because we get to like talk to each other and talk back, and we want to do that. So, but we also don't, I know that we're used to now being able to say to somebody, would you come to my event? And no, you don't have to get on a plane. I know you're in New York, will you come to my event? This way, they're going to still be coming to the event virtually, but maybe everybody else is going to be at the event in person in San Antonio, or everybody who's in San Antonio. You know, I think a blend is where it's going to be, because we're all spoiled rotten now, right? Because you don't have to get on a plane.
Hey, Charlotte Ann, this is another question that my late mother would inspire in me. What are the signals that you have a troublesome connection, and before you should restart your video conference or video chat?
Well, I mean, very seriously, before you start it, do the testing that I did. I mean, I hit speedtest.net probably 10 or 12 times today, just trying to make sure that I had that good connection. And so that way, before you go up, you know, if it's going to be good enough. I mean, you can test it before you go up, and that is probably my number one thing, is test. It's like the carpenter's rule of, you know, measure 3 times, cut once. I test 3 times and then go live. I mean, it really, you can, and so you should.
Do you think a nonprofit should have any problems in taping a virtual meeting?
No, I mean, you shouldn't have any problems doing that, but you should also make it very, very clear. As a journalist, we know I had rules that I had to abide by when I was having a telephone conversation with somebody, when I was interviewing them for a story. In some states, it was required by law that every party, that there be 2-party consent before you recorded that kind of a conversation. And from a practical standpoint, you should do that anyway. I mean, from a permission standpoint, you shouldn't record someone without letting them know. But I think it's really legit to say, I'd really like to record this so that I can spend more time engaging with you and less time taking notes or something like that. But make sure you get the permission of the person of the people who are involved in the call, right? That they know that it's being recorded. And most of the time we all are super appreciative, because I want to come back and replay the video. But
yeah, hey,
it's got to be up front.
Let's say, once again, we're forcing Charlotte Ann to have a video conference with Mackenzie Scott to ask for $20 million. Say you have 20 minutes, okay? How much of the time would you show visuals during that, or maybe testimonials, but anything other than eyeball to eyeball or screen ball to screen ball communication?
You know, I think I have to go back to what my training taught me, and what we hear from everybody time and time again. And that is that the story is telling a story is the most important, right? So I didn't need to show you a lot of visuals. you could imagine the visuals of the children who were sent home from school and did not have access to their meals at school because the children in poverty didn't have access to meals. I mean, I don't need to show you much of anything. I just need to tell you, we started to do this. And by the time we were done, we had 319 locations. And that's the kind of work that we do, is help children in poverty find food during a pandemic. And there are probably visuals that could go with that, but we weren't taking pictures of kids. We were putting places on a map. So the story, in a sense, I think, remember what radio did for us, right? Remember radio? It made you use your imagination. And so sometimes, and maybe we need to do this more, but sometimes telling the story without absolutely in their face with here's what the story looks like is particularly if you're in a one-to-one conversation, right? If I'm putting up a video, that's its purpose. If I'm in a one-to-one conversation, I want to have her use her imagination and think about children in poverty, being able to use their cell phone to find free food.
Okay, we're wrapping up. This has been such a rich hour, and I'm saved a very difficult question for you. In the 25 years that I was asking for higher education institutions, when I was able to get into that office of the person we're going to ask for 100,000 or $1 million, a lot of money, and it was probably very hard to get into that office. I created kind of such wonderful vision sight, and to look at their photos, to look at the books, to look at awards. I sometimes would get as much clues from that as from the conversation. And anyways, I guess we don't have 360 cameras yet, or, how to make up that gap.
So, I mean, the reporter in me says shoe leather, right? Google. And it really is. I mean, and you know how we've all had to do this anyway. I check people's Facebook pages if I haven't talked to them in 6 months before I give them a call to make sure that they're okay and their spouses are okay and stuff. I mean, you've got to use all the other resources available to you online, and there are plenty, whether it's news stories, news articles, or whether it's and run a Google alert on that person for 6 months before you go talk to that person, so that when something pops up, I mean, I still run Google alerts on my former board members. Well, one of them's Rosie Castro, so that makes sense, but I always want to know what they're doing.
By the way, too, I mean, you've given us so much gold, and we wanted just to look at, it's hard, 3 nuggets, okay? 1, make sure that your camera is always at eye level. Number 2, what was it? I said your video is only going to be as good as your audio. You said it in a different way. If your sound sucks, your video sucks. And you can actually this way be more efficient and save money by using wired headphones and earbuds. And the last thing, and this is Charlotte Ann's, you must be hardwired. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, be hardwired, and there's photographs and instructions on how to do that. And the other thing is test a lot, and have a backup plan.
Yeah. And again, our job is about inspiring donors. We're about to say goodbye. Is there any last? By the way, here's a final question for you, Charlotte Ann. Who is the only poet ever to recite at a presidential inauguration and then the Super Bowl?
It's Amanda Gorman. She is such a hero of mine.
Yeah. And you know that she started with a reading disability, and she's overcome great obstacles and a stutter. And this is the lines she read, the hill we climb. And I think that's a perfect way to describe what we do together in the nonprofit community. I always like to leave people with a money back guarantee. This is Jim Eskin's money back guarantee. The more you ask, the more you're going to get. So what are we saying, Charlotte Ann? The more you ask.
The more you ask, the more you're going to get.
Charlotte Ann, thank you for not only, she was also our substitute producer So again, thank you for everything you do for the community. You have 6 more events. So we're going to put a short summary of this on LinkedIn and on Facebook, and also we're going to share your tip sheets,
Mhm.
sheet, and then we'll see about 24 to 48 hours. We'll work out the recording. Okay. Well, listen, thank you so much. You're going off to work. Andrea and I are going off to Zinfandel. Again, thank you. Thank you to you and the NOWCastSA team for everything you do to make our community more aware and to help it make better decisions. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you guys for your attention. That's priceless, and I'm very grateful.
Thank you to our learning community, and we'll see you next Wednesday. Good night, everyone. Stay safe.